We use a different microphone. Shorty, can you hear me? All right. Annette, can you hear me? Good deal. Our normal headset microphones, there's a little foam cover that goes on them, and they've just about worn out. Mary had ordered some, and I'm guessing they are probably on the counter at home and just haven't been opened yet. So I don't know. I don't have them, so we use this one instead. It may a little bit of feedback there. I don't know, but that's just probably because I got it close, but probably so. But I'm afraid if I put it down here, I don't want to tear my shirt. So can y'all bear with me? No. But what about now? Annette, can you still hear me? All right, good. All right, we worked. It worked. Well, the good thing is we probably ain't going to be here too long tonight because we are not going to spend a ton. Tonight is the last of our lessons on the Song of or on the wisdom literature. And then for the next couple of weeks, Tom is going to speak. Tom told me beforehand, hadn't decided what he wanted to speak on. He said for me to throw it out to you all, pick the hardest topic possible and go tell him afterwards, and he would be happy to take care of it. So I might have misunderstood him, but I think that's what he said there this evening. So pick out your hardest thing. Get all the hard stuff out of the way. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and then you don't have to worry. Then I won't have to worry about it then. It'll be let him do all the tough work. But Tom will do fine, I'm sure, and you'll be fortunate to get to talk and study with him as well. Tonight is the last of these. There have been 12 lessons. I think there's 5 books, and we spent a little more time on some and a little less on others. And tonight's lesson about the Song of Solomon, I say it won't be too long because there's a few different approaches that you can take to it. There are 8 chapters in the book. It can be a little intense. We're not going to read all that. In fact, I've only got a couple verses that we're going to read here this evening. And I want to think more on a sort of practical sense of what we're going to talk about. Over the last couple of weeks, we talked about women. We talked about men. And so tonight, perhaps we're going to do like a combination of both. And I want us to think about marriage, and then I want us to think about perhaps the church as well. So that's that's kind of how we're going to look at it. I want to talk a little bit about the book first, the Song of Solomon, and hopefully this will be here that you can read. It's traditionally attributed to Solomon. I know that seems odd, but bear with me here for just a second, where we see the Song of Solomon. This is the last of what we would call the wisdom literature. From things I've read, sometimes it's misinterpreted. Sometimes it's overinterpreted, perhaps. And then in a lot of ways, it's overlooked as well. We were talking about this this week, or I guess last week. Dad and I were talking about it, and I told Dad, I didn't totally know how I was going to approach it, and he said, I don't even usually think about it. So I don't know. I've taught from it before, but not extensively. And so I was going to put a little time into sort of the background of it. And this is what's difficult. Books of the Bible and dating books of the Bible is a sort of tricky science. A lot of books in the Bible, I've said this before, but we have a tendency to think that people were just writing it down as they went along. That's not really how it worked. A lot of things were written much later than the fact. Now, this is a little bit different, though. The dating on this book is somewhere between the 10th and the 2nd century BC. That's an 800-year gap for what. So whenever you think, if you think you can't remember something, if you put 800 years between you, you probably ain't going to be able to remember it too well either. But obviously, that length of time leaves a lot of open space there. Now, as I read about it, it was written originally in Aramaic, and that language had replaced Hebrew by the end of the Babylonian captivity. The Babylonian captivity is the 5th century-ish BC. So essentially, that happens about halfway between the sort of farthest way back and the most recent dating of it. And so because of that, though, that event occurred after King Solomon's reign. So if it was after King Solomon's reign, and it's written in Aramaic, which would have been a language that he would not have been writing in, the odds are very good that it was not written by Solomon. Now, that does not mean that it wouldn't be the thoughts of Solomon, but it probably was not written by Solomon. This, however, kind of explains it. Because depending on what version of the Bible you have, you probably won't see it called the Song of Solomon. In fact, quite often, that is actually a title that I think in many ways has kind of went away. And it's more commonly referred to as the Song of Songs that you'll see. And that's quite often. So I say that only because I think it's important for us to look and study this just a little bit. I think it's important for us to know when things were written. We think about when things were written right then, or if things were written at a later time, there's a difference in it. This is not a historical book bear with me here. If I were to tell you everything that happened at work today, I'm in many ways giving you an historical account of what it would be. That's not what this is. Okay? This is a book that will talk about relationships, talks about man and woman, talks about marriage, and those kinds of things. So this is something that can be written later. It can be written at a different time as well. It doesn't have to be written right then. So the book here, the Song of Songs, or the Song of Solomon, a little bit about what we're looking at here this evening. So some structural things of it. First of all, most of the time when we write things, we will write about a person doing a certain thing. And we would say that Johnny went to work at 7:30 a.m. All right. Well, we've established a few things there, right? We've established that Johnny is our character in the story. We now know where he went, and we have a time frame for it. It might be then our second sentence is when Johnny arrived at work, he saw Lucille. Now we brought a second character in. So if I immediately start talking about Maria, then I'm sort of off the path of what I'm talking about. We've got a character and we've got a character. That's usually how we write or we tell things. This is a little different. Song of Solomon is written as a dialogue, or in many ways a conversation between three people. And I want to use the word people sort of loosely right here. Person number one is the bride. It is sometimes referred to as the Shulamite woman. Okay? Now I'm guessing most of you have spent little time thinking about Shulamites, but I'll tell you this. Shulamite is from the Hebrew word that means woman of Jerusalem. All right. So it is in many ways, perhaps a female representation of Jerusalem. So I ask you this question. Why would Jerusalem matter? Why would the woman of Jerusalem perhaps be a topic? Okay. So it's not, so this is not necessarily about a singular woman, but as a representation, as a group of people. Again, when we think about things in sort of a literal sense, we should not think about this in a literal sense. Now, there are some literal things that we can think about as well, but that's the bride. The second person, yes, sir. Yes. Certainly a significant, special, important thing. All right, let's go to the second one. The second person, and again, we use this word loosely, is the groom. Usually, the person is actually referred to as the beloved in the book. All right, so if we have a bride, we have a groom, we have the Shulamite woman, and we have a beloved. Now, this is commonly thought to be Solomon. The word Solomon's name comes up here several times as well. And so there is this conversation between Solomon and this woman. Now, we can look at this on the surface level and say it's a man and a woman, husband and wife. Go a little deeper. Why might there need to be a conversation between Solomon and the Shulamite, or the bride of Jerusalem? And maybe what might the depth of this mean? I think so. An allegory representing God and the church. You have the church, which is the woman, the bride. You have God, who is Solomon, the wisdom, the wise, the beloved. Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. All right. So we have sort of the height of both right here. There's a third, and this is where I said people, because there are people that are mentioned here as well. This is the chorus, and this is friends that are referred to as the daughters of Jerusalem. And there's a part here that's played there as well. And so those are the three that are there. There's a communication between all three. Now, again, if we don't get anything from this, I do want you to take this. This is a story. All right. This is a story that can be helpful for our sort of learning. And we'll talk about that a bit more here as we go. Theme number two, or I guess there's technically a couple of things here, but one is from Song of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 2. This is the beauty of love and desire. Again, we have two readings here that are fairly short for us. Annette, do you care to read Song of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 2? So if we take this verse, this is verse 2 in the book or in the letter or whatever we want to call it. And we can tell just from right here that this is sort of a love letter, right? This is a love note, as it were. Now, I'm not going to have you raise your hand. If anybody ever passed a note from boy to girl in the classroom before, anybody ever write something and then somebody sitting like, oh, no, I don't want to see that, right? We probably all can relate to that right there. Well, what we see here is a bit of this sort of romantic, this love, this desire. We're going to get into it a little bit more in a second, but is it important for us to understand, to the best of our ability, love and desire in a relationship? Why is that important for us? Okay. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a romantic description here, but I think we can sort of distill this down into other things. There's love, and if you get into the Greek, there's like three different kinds of love, and they mean different things. And the way I love my wife and the way I love baseball are two different things, but the word can still be used. The word desire in the same way. You can desire your spouse, but you can also desire locations. And how many of you have a place in the world where you like to go to, where you really like to see? And it might be as the mountains, or it might be a creek. It might be a chair on the back porch where you read a book from. It could be anything like that. But there is this sort of innate desire in all of us that we would want to strive for or to see certain things. Now, the second thing, because I think they are important as well, is faithfulness and contentment. Okay? And those two things are separate from love and desire. Let's look first at Song of Solomon 8, verses 6 and 7. Ben, do you care to read these two verses?
For love is as strong as death. Jealousy is cruel as the grave. Flame for flame is fire. Most ignorant. Many waters without quench love, nor can floods drown. If a man forgives for love for all the wealth of his house, it will never be his love.
All right. So I want to go back here for just a second, and I want to talk about faithfulness and commitment. All right. Contentment. I'm sorry, not commitment. Faithfulness and contentment. Why is faithfulness important in our lives? And I'm not even talking about faithfulness to the church, but just faithfulness in general.
You're not faithful. You're not true to what you believe. There's nothing that you won't do. There's nothing that you can do. I mean, I think everything is on that
Yep. Others? Tom? Uh-huh. Absolutely. Others? The seal. How many of you have ever had something notarized before? Like the note, that whatever that paper looked like. Once it's notarized, it looks very different, right? Those little ridges and those things that are stamped into there. It has a different look. There's ownership of that. When Mary and I sold our house, the lady that I worked with, she was a notary, and she came and she did the notarization because I sold it independently. I didn't use a realtor. But she notarized that, but that sort of made it official, right? Made it real there as it was. And if we're faithful, our faithfulness is an attribute that is a positive, but a lack of it can be a negative. Why do we struggle, or why do we not like a lack of faithfulness? Mm-hmm.
Almost impossible to tell what someone's unfaithful to. You can forgive them. They got many God forgives us all the time, but it hurt is one of the major